Okay, for this video and the next one, we're going to tackle a subject which there's been a lot of discussion about, a lot of preaching on, and that is the topic of the Antichrist. Who is it? What is it? And when does it happen? Now, there's been a lot of people through time who have taken this as being a man who's going to bring the world together under a one world government. Is that what it is? And in my estimation, people have been preaching this stuff because they heard it from their pastor, who heard it from his pastor, who heard it from his pastor. And it strikes me that nobody actually went back into Scripture to double check with on their pastors to see if what was actually being said was right. So I might say some things that might cause you to think about now. And I hope that's the case. But I want you to go back and check it out, and don't listen with an open mind. Listen with an open Bible. So I'm going to start where I always start, with Amos 3, 6 and 7. Is a trumpet blown in a city, and the people are not afraid? Does disaster come to a city unless the Lord has done it? For the Lord God does nothing without revealing his secret to his servants the prophets. And then again, Revelation 10, 5 and 7. And the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised his right hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created what is in it, and the earth and what is in it. And hang on, I've got to go back. And the angel whom I saw standing on the sea and on the land raised his right hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever and ever, who created heaven and what is in it, the earth and what is in it, and the sea and what is in it, that there would be no more delay, but that in the days of the trumpet call to be sounded by the seventh angel, the mystery of God would be fulfilled, just as he announced to his servants, the prophets. Okay, so now we're going to go right back to where we started. Now, if you haven't watched my first videos, where I read the book of Daniel, and then I explain the time periods of the book of Daniel, I'll ask you to stop the video now, go back and watch those so that you'll understand where I'm coming from, especially the videos about the time periods, because I don't really want to go back over old ground. So if you wouldn't mind stopping the video and going back and watching those and then coming back. Thank you. All right, so I'm going to start with Daniel 7, 2 and 3. Daniel declared, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the four winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea. This is just like in the book of Revelation, where this beast, this amalgamation of these four beasts that Daniel describes, come up out of the sea. And four great beasts came up out of the sea, different from one another. And then we'll skip down to, because we're only concentrating on the Antichrist, we're not thinking about the other beasts, just the terrifying beast. Daniel 7, 7 to 8. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, terrifying and dreadful, and exceedingly strong. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another horn, a little one, before which 3 of the first horns were plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. Okay, now we'll go down now to Daniel 7, 19 to 28. Then I desired to know the truth about the fourth beast, which was different from all the rest. Notice that twice he said, This is not like no other beast, no other kingdom, nothing else that ever was before. Exceedingly terrifying, with its teeth of iron and claws of bronze, and which devoured and broke in pieces and stamped what was left with its feet, and about the 10 horns that were on its head, and the other horn that came up, and before which 3 of them fell. The horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke great things, and that seemed greater than its companions. As I looked, this horn made war with the saints and prevailed over them, until the Ancient of Days came, and judgment was given for the saints of the Most High, and the time came when the saints possessed the kingdom. So, as I've said in previous videos, the saints are overcome. And this is a terrifying thing that does it. Thus he said, as for the 4th beast, there shall be a 4th kingdom on the earth, which shall be different from all the kingdoms, and shall devour the whole earth, and trample it down, and break it to pieces. As for the 10 horns, out of this kingdom 10 kings shall arise, and another shall arise after them. Excuse me. He shall be different from the former ones. He shall put down 3 kings. He shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and shall think to change the times and the law. And they shall be given into his hand for a time, times, and half a time. But the court sat in judgment, and his dominion shall be taken away, to be consumed and destroyed to the end. And the kingdom and the dominion and the greatness of the kingdoms under the whole heaven shall be given to the people of the saints of the Most High. His kingdom shall be an everlasting kingdom, and all dominions shall serve and obey him. Here is the end of the matter. As for me, Daniel, my thoughts greatly alarmed me, and my colour changed, but I kept the matter in my heart. So Daniel was terrified by what he was seeing. Now, it's very interesting that this beast comes up and it says it shall devour the whole earth. Now, we've got to be very careful, because when people read the earth from a 21st century point of view, they think globally. And sometimes it does mean globally. And in the next video, I will describe and show how it can be global or it can be a region. Because Nebuchadnezzar it was said of Nebuchadnezzar that he was the king of the whole earth. Well, he wasn't king of the whole earth as we know it. He was king of what was known at the time, and he had a great kingdom. At the end of the book of Revelation, as I read out in the last video, that the armies march up to Jerusalem over the plain of the earth. Well, that can't be the whole globe, because how do you march up over the Atlantic or the Pacific or anything? So they come across the plain, across the land of the region. So we've got to be very careful. And a lot of people, when they're thinking about the Antichrist and about the beast, have this, it takes over. That's where they get this one world government idea, because they don't go back and read the Old Testament as such and put it in context. They start at the New Testament and work towards the end of the New Testament. And then they get this idea. So anyway, I hope that clarifies a couple of things. Anyway, we'll keep going. Daniel 8:23 to 27. And at the latter end of their kingdom, now this is in the context of talking about all the beasts, which were Persia and Babylon and Rome. And it's saying at the end of these, not at the end of time, but at the end of these kingdoms, there will be this last one in this area. So in the latter days, but at the latter end of their kingdom. There will be no kingdom in this area like this kingdom after this point. And at the latter end of their kingdom, when the transgressors have reached their limit, which is Babylon and Rome and the Romans, a king of bold face, one who understands riddles, shall arise. His power shall be great, but not by his own power. And he shall cause fearful destruction, and shall succeed in what he does, and destroy mighty men and the people who are the saints. By his cunning he shall make deceit prosper under his hand, and in his own mind he shall become great. Without warning he shall destroy many, and he shall even rise up against the Prince of Princes, and he shall be broken, but by no human hand. The vision of the evenings and the mornings that has been told is true. And if you've watched those other videos, as I said earlier, you'll understand what that is. But seal up the vision, for it refers to many days from now. So then we go from this point right to the end. And I, Daniel, was overcome and lay sick for some days. Then I rose and went about the king's business, but I was appalled by the vision and did not understand it. So Daniel got all these visions of this thing coming, but he didn't know what it was all about. Now, so we're going now to the Olivet Discourse, Matthew's Olivet Discourse, and we're going to read from from chapter 24, verse 15 to 28, and this is about the abomination of desolation. And it says, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by the prophet Daniel, we just read that, standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. So go back, read Daniel. You must understand Daniel to get what this is. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in his house. And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. When you see this thing coming, get out. This is what this is saying. And alas for women who are pregnant, and for those who are nursing infants in those days. So this is a time period. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath, for then there will be great tribulation, such has not been from the beginning of the world until now, and never will be. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, so when you see this thing coming, it's interesting that he says, after this point, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there is the Christ, don't believe it. He doesn't say that earlier after the sacking of Jerusalem, which happened in 70 AD. It's after this point. Now, why at this point? Because at this point, a huge, false, deceptive religion kingdom comes, and I'll just read the rest of this and you'll see it. For then, if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it. For false Christ and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead you astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. So if they say to you, look, here's in the wilderness, do not go out. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. So, because this statement about the Son of Man coming has kind of muddied the waters a bit, because that means they put it at the end of the time. But we know that that a day is 1,000 years. And as I've said on a previous video, God can put things together that seem right next to each other, but they're actually years apart. So when it says, don't go out into the wilderness, and we'll see in the next video, we'll clarify that as to why Jesus made that statement. Now, there's a really great book called, hang on a second, by a guy named Mark A. Gabriel, called Islam and the Jews, The Unfinished Battle. And he goes through the history of how what happened at the beginning of Islam. Now, it's a very good book to read. I urge you to go and get it. But I'll just give you an overview, given what we just read from Matthew. Muhammad was visited by the Archangel Gabriel, according to Islam. Now, in the book of Daniel, we know that Michael is the angel, the protector of Israel, of the Jews. So why did God send Gabriel? And Gabriel turns up and is talking to Daniel. And I think God is very smart, because what he did was he sent Gabriel, gave Daniel a vision till the end of time, knowing full well that Satan would turn up in the form of Gabriel to Muhammad centuries later. And then when Muhammad tried to convince the Jews that and the Christians that he had the final revelation of God, and that Gabriel had said this to him, they all looked back to their Old Testament books, to the book of Daniel, and said, well, hang on a minute. Gabriel turned up to Daniel, and he never said to Daniel, by the way, I'm going to turn up in a few centuries, and I'm going to completely undo what I just told you. So the Christians and the Jews went, no. As soon as Muhammad said to them, Gabriel turned up, they all looked back to their old books and went, no. So they resisted Islam. And that's what this warning is about. You will hear prophets and all that kind of stuff coming from this new thing. Do not believe it. Understand your Old Testament prophets and trust them. Don't believe this thing. I will go on in the next video to tease out from the New Testament and Revelation the beast, the actual, the beast, and what the New Testament says about it. So until then, thank you, and I'll see you then. Bye.